keep your mouth shut and the welcome mat out. This is the advice from Jim Burns on parenting adult kids. Join us for this important conversation with our special guest today on Family Vision. All right, I want to welcome back Jim Burns from Homeward. We are talking about parenting adult children. We are talking about his book, Doing Life with Your Adult Children. If for some reason you missed last week's episode, which was part one of our conversation, please go back and listen to that. Watch that on YouTube. Get caught up to speed because we're going to pick up right where we left off. As I shared last week, Jim, this is part counseling for me and part sharing your wisdom with our audience.
All of us.
So let's focus on counseling for me.
Yeah.
I, by nature, am a rescuer. Okay, I just like people to be happy. I don't like seeing people suffer. I want my kids happy. And you spend a fair amount of time in this book, I think, speaking to parents like me who may have a tendency to rescue financially or rescue emotionally. You have this phrase, and I want you to explain it. You say they will never know how far the town is if you carry them on your back. Right. I found that really grabbed my attention. I wanted you to expand on it.
That's actually an African proverb, Rob. It's really interesting because we have pure intentions. Those of us who are rescuers, those who want to help, those who want to fix it, those who want to give it, good advice, actually. Good, it's not like we're giving them bad advice. We have
great
pure
advice.
intent.
It's great.
Yeah, exactly. So we have, as adults, as the parents, we have pure intentions. But what happens is we have to ask a question. Am I enabling or helping? So I think those of us who are rescuers, we sometimes enable dependency on us. You mentioned finances, and I see that a lot. 75% of parents are going to help their adult children with financially in one way or another. So, if I'm not saying you never help if you can, great, but it's where I'll give you an illustration. Illustration is somebody I know that they went into their retirement savings to help their children buy their dream house, which was nicer than their house. Wow. Well, the children weren't ready to do that. The children didn't have the background to be able to pay for that. They didn't have the maturity level. And so the house goes into foreclosure. So then they have to take more money out of their retirement. And these people were at an age where they were going to retire. Well, they had to not retire to bail their kids out. They didn't even then sell the house. They just did it again. Second time. You'd think you'd learn the first time, mess on me once. Okay. Second time. Well, what they were doing is they were enabling dependency on those kids because the kids, mom and dad are going to bail us out. And then that's exactly what happened. See? So we have to be careful that when we think we're helping, we may be enabling. So one of the questions I have to ask on that enabling thing is this going to just come alongside and give them a blessing, or is it going to be something that now they're going to become dependent on me? And if they're going to become dependent on me, then as hard as it is, we don't do it. And I've often said, some of Kathy's my help. We have a beautiful home in Dana Point, California. We have some of our happiest moments in this little apartment that we had when I was at Princeton, where you could see from our bed, you could see everything except for the toilet. And those are beautiful times. You can have a marriage, you can have children, you can, do that. Well, sometimes our adult kids need to go through that experience, okay, instead of, buying the fancy house for them or whatever. But loans, things like that, I think we have to be very, very careful that we're not enabling them, because when we enable them, what is it? Well, what happens then? There's a failure to launch. So we have kids who are even married that we're helping with finances, but they're not launching because they're still dependent on mom and dad. So I think we have to wean them. Remember when you're talking about babies being a hard season, I was thinking our daughter just weaned her son from breastfeeding. And I think it was harder on her than it was on him. But so I always say it's hard for the weaner and the weenie, meaning, then you get to your kids to be adults and you go, no, but I don't want them to have the pain we had, or I don't want them to have the struggle. No, we learn through pain. So,
let's talk about in-laws. Let's say you're not a fan of who your son or daughter has married, or you're not a fan of their family. How in the world do you wisely, Christianly wade into that situation? I am so grateful we are 2 for 2 on extraordinary spouses for our children and their families. We're praying to be 7 for 7 on that. But how would you counsel folks that are facing that difficult situation?
That's where I think you become the greatest cheerleader, even though you don't feel it right now.
What cheerleading for who? What do you mean?
Cheerleading for the in-law that you didn't love. I mean, not you love them because your kid married him, but this is a huge thing, Rob. You're 2 for 2. I meet very few people who, when they're really honest, would say that, they're batting 1,000, so they have some, struggles with their in-laws. And so I think you have to just go, no, we are going to show them God's love by being a cheerleader for them. And I'll give you an illustration. There's actually a woman here in my office at Homeward who her daughter-in-law is a very strong woman, not the choice that this woman would have chosen for her son. And the daughter-in-law started blocking that, you couldn't see them and whatnot. And then when the children come, no, we're too busy right now, you can't come by. And they live pretty near each other. And I gave her some advice. And I was like, my advice isn't always all that good, but I said, she loves coffee. Why don't you just stop by with a Starbucks card and just don't even ask her to go to Starbucks. But the way to your son is through your daughter-in-law. So she needs to like you. So she stops by, gives her a $25 Starbucks card, which I thought, wow, that's kind of, impressive. It wasn't the $10 one that I might get.
It's $25. That's gonna be 2 drinks. That's pretty good.
Yeah. You're so right. So the next week she does the same thing. And she's not allowing her to come and even hardly be with the grandchild at this point. They now have 4. But she said, why don't we go get some coffee? My mom is here and she can watch the baby and we'll just go get some coffee. Well, you know what? They are best friends. I wish I could say this is the story for everybody, but they are like best friends now.
Wow. She
still disagrees on some of the things, how this young woman does life and how she does church once every 6 weeks instead of, much more regularly. But she has instant access to her grandkids. She has instant access to her son. And actually she's grown to really appreciate the relationship that they have. I think that mom made a good decision. When you think about it, she was getting stonewalled by her daughter-in-law. Mm-hmm. Frankly, she didn't like her daughter-in-law. She didn't like the values that her daughter-in-law were bringing into some of this. She was afraid that her son was going to go that way. But instead of doing it, she quietly began to just show love by keeping her mouth shut, never saying, hey, I totally disagree with you on this or that or whatever. So I think that's the answer. I mean, in the book, I give a story about a woman who I know from our church who we have all daughters. So again, no hormones or drama in our life. Yeah. But when they got married, she had all sons. And I said, well, what do you do if I know what we did with girls. You're throwing out a lot of money and it's dramatic and you got to get dresses and all this kind of stuff. She goes, you wear beige and keep your mouth shut. And I went, that's the illustration for in-laws that we're not super excited about. Now, that doesn't mean that you don't, like in the dating process, it doesn't mean as a parent, you don't say, hey, would you mind if I shared something? Sure. Because, like I wrote a book with my friend Doug Fields on getting ready for marriage, and we have kind of 5 flags. And one is, what does the community say about the other person? Meaning, what do your parents say? What do your friends say? Because some go, my parents think the guy's a jerk. My friends think he's a jerk, but I'm going to change him. Not a good idea, right? So that doesn't mean that you don't say something. You don't say, hey, I'm concerned. You're dating somebody who's not a believer and you're a believer. How does that feel? You're dating somebody who, it sounds like there's a red flag. It seems like he drinks a lot, or she seems to be a person who, kind of flirts with a lot of people on the outside. I mean, are you okay with that? Or how's it going? I want to be a support to you. I have some concerns. You have the hard conversations. Please don't hear me say you never bring it up. I think you have to.
Right.
If they solidify it in a marriage, you take a deep breath and you cheer them up.
Right. That's right. You've crossed a line there, and the ministry looks different there, right?
No,
in last week's episode, Jim, we talked about really kind of warning parents not to cut their adult kids out of their life. Like if they're making moral choices, they moved in with someone or something, to not like shun them and abandon them. They need you.
Right.
What about the opposite? And we are seeing this in spades in our counseling ministry, where parents of adult children are calling and they're saying, my adult child has divorced me. They might even use that word.
Right.
They don't approve of the adult child does not approve of the parents' beliefs, choices, lifestyle, religion. And they've said, look, as long as you are going to believe those things, as long as you're going to vote that way, then I want nothing to do with you.
Right.
Obviously, the pain is through the roof for that parent who feels like their child's divorced them. But what would be the triage, even in the moment when they've heard something like that you would share?
And no easy answers on this, but a thought. And I'm on a show, a radio show, which is called New Life Live, and I do 6 hours of their 20 hours of counseling. And so because I wrote a book on empty nest and on doing life with your adult children, I get that question all the time. And it's just the parents are absolutely broken. Well, they're not going to love my answer, but my answer is it goes back to keeping your mouth shut. And I think you tiptoe back into the relationship. Never go tit for tat, meaning don't try to convert them to your belief, but literally accept them for who they are. You do that at work. You do that, with people who are, when you're a younger parent and you're watching the games, somebody's saying something ridiculous. Well, it's not like you go, you're an idiot. You just keep your mouth shut, right? So I think with them, we honor them by that. Like, so for example, a call that I had yesterday on New Life Live was the parents have been sneaking the grandkids to church. Well, you know what? I believe that they should be at church. I mean, I'm for that 150%. And I said, well, you're making a mistake, I think, because the parents have, for your children forbid you to do that. And because you're doing that, and now they found out and they don't want anything to do with you, I'm not sure it's worth it, because again, it's back to the marathon. There's going to come a time when they have a need or whatever, and you weren't safe because you put that higher. Now, it's an interesting illustration because of the church. Of course, we want our grandchildren to love Jesus and to follow in his footsteps. We don't want them to grow up not knowing about God. But I think you can do it in different ways. So if they say, we don't appreciate your political stance, or we don't appreciate that how you're doing life with your faith, then do it aside. Don't have a political conversation. Don't try to convert them that your way is the way. Don't make fun of the people that they're voting for. They have nothing to do with the fact, you stay faithful to your church, stay faithful to your morals, stay faithful to your values, all of that, but don't bring it there. And it's back to the baby steps. You kind of take some baby steps with them. I find, and it's funny because I say this over and over again with people with estrangement, one way or the other, is try to have some fun together, because it's funny. But when you play together, my PhD was on traits of a healthy family, and play was one of the factors that pray we believed in, of course, but play. And what I say to these people is, they're mad at you for this, situation, but try to do something. If it's go out to dinner, take them shopping, go to a ball game, never bring it up. And if they bring it up, just say, well, honey, we're going to agree to disagree. Do you want the barbecued ribs or do you want the spaghetti? You know what I mean? You're moving the conversation. What they then hear you say is, you're more important to me as a child, my adult child, than what you think is my, religious beliefs or whatever. Because again, they know how you stand. I say to parents all the time, do they know how you feel? Yes. Do they know what you believe? Sure. So that means you've talked to them. Now hold back, broaden the relationship. So I find over the years, I wrote Doing Life with Your Adult Child in 2019. So it's been a while. It's still a bestseller. It cracks me up that it just keeps coming. But the fascinating side of that is I find that even in that short time with that kind of advice, people will say, hey, thanks for that advice. We're back together again. And they got into a situation where they asked us, I had one just tell me this, that their son wanted their son to be dedicated in the church because they were dedicated, but they don't go to church. They said, could we do that if we don't go to your church? Could we have the baby dedicated there? Well, they don't even understand this couple didn't even understand really what dedication means, right? But they wanted the baby dedicated because that's what you do. Hey, They made an inroad with that because these people said, we never want you to be around our kids and talk about faith. They'd sent a Bible and they sent the Bible back to them because they sent a little children's Bible to this kid. I mean, they were like adamant. Now they're saying, what about our baby getting baptized? Not baby so much, but a little older, maybe 3, 4. What about our child getting dedicated at your church? That's a big difference. But that took 3 years.
Right.
And
Of
for some, it's going to take
just
13 years.
building, 3 years of really focusing on the relationship, because
Right.
if they're divorcing you, you don't have any influence. They don't want your influence. So unless there's a refreshing of the relationship, the influence is not going to.
I had to do some damage control with a daughter of mine. We were talking about church, and she had kind of, she wasn't going that much. And she was teaching a Bible study in junior high, and 55 kids were coming to it. I mean, this is that kid, right? And so one day we were talking about it, and I said, I tried to be loving, but it was a really dumb thing. Your wife can always, or your spouse can always tell you when it was. But I said, so are you guys going to just become the, Christmas Eve, Easter, people who come to church? That's not a bad thing to say. She took it, Dad, how could you say that? Mm-hmm. Honestly, they had become the Easter Christmas people. And I get it. It was at the end of COVID and, things were happening. But I should have never said that, because she took that as I was judging her, and it's possible to love Jesus without being a part of a church in her mind and all this kind of stuff. What I should have done was never said that. Think it, sure, but never said that. And, today they're looking for a church. I mean, it wasn't as bad as I made it to be. I made it as a parent terrible, because I'm like, why are they not going to church? It's opening back up. Let's get on with the move. They don't live by us, so it would be, finding a place. And I was sending her a couple of times, cool churches in the area, and I probably didn't need to do that. And, the cool part of it is for us, and it's not always a happy story, but the cool part is just on Sunday, she was talking about, a church that they had visited, they really liked in the Los Angeles area, and they thought they would go back.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right. Final question. This one's just for me. Okay. We have just been blessed with our first grandchild, little Avi, 7 months old. So I'm coming to Jim for mentorship as a person who's just brand new to the grandparenting world. Right. Give me a few minutes of your counsel.
Sure. Well, actually, it's interesting, because when I talk about doing life with your adult children, it gets intense because of the stuff we do. As soon as I bring up grandkids, it changes the whole picture, because parents, all of a sudden, they're like, oh, this is the greatest thing, and whatever. Not to say that there aren't issues in this. My friend Larry Fowler, who I'm sure you know, who has a wonderful legacy grandparenting, he wrote a book on all the tough issues of what we were talking about with, what if your kids don't want your grandkids to go to church and all that? I'm not saying that. But I'm saying, as a grandparent, here's your legacy. This is your chance to build your greatest legacy. And so you invest in the kids. I mean, please, you won't. But, I say this to parents, don't be the people who, live in Minnesota and move to Florida and say, we're going to visit our kids once a year and not even have a relationship with them. I mean, if you want to move to Florida, fantastic. But I'm just saying, make this a weekly time with the kids. It's called FaceTime. It's called, there's ways to stay in touch. So it could be your greatest legacy. And I see that in my own life. With James, who's 7, I've read through the children's Bible with him, and that's a thick Bible, right? I've read through it with him 3 times. I didn't do that with my kids. We had we did more than most family devotions. I remember we read the Chronicles of Narnia. I mean, there were things we did, but James and Charlotte, and I'm teaching Huxley right now. He's our youngest. Let's pray. And so I showed him to the parents. I said, okay, we're going to pray. This is the dinner on Sunday. I said, okay, Huxley, let's pray. And he goes, he doesn't understand all that, but I'm more keyed into that. At the same time, I get this from my grandma, who cussed like a sailor. I don't know if sailors cuss, but she cussed, and she worked in a shipyard, so she was a character. But she was the party time grandma. I was so attracted to her because she was the life of the party. She was fun. She was great. I had another grandma who I wasn't as close to, who at Christmas would buy me socks and underwear. Okay. This grandma, who had a lot less money, but she would buy fun stuff. Or every time I was with her, she would, sneak me something. This morning, I just got to be honest with you, I'm trying to be the party time grandpa. So Kathy, I had a 7 o'clock meeting, and then I came home to change clothes, and Charlotte is there, going to take her to preschool, and Charlotte goes, Papa Jay, I want a treat. And I go, well, what do you want? So I take her to a cookie thing, and she goes, I don't want cookies, I want popcorn. I go, okay. So this is 8:30 in the morning, and she has a bowl with some popcorn. Kathy walks down and goes, seriously? Well, my job is not to think about the nutrition value of popcorn. My job is for Charlotte to have a good experience with grandpa. And then you can go overboard. But
Sure.
again, that's what I would do. So this grandchild of yours, man, be the most fun. See everybody else, give them all hugs in the family, get on the floor and start playing when they're, at that age. James and I go on special dates. He loves Chick-fil-A. So we go, I pick him up at school. Periodically, we go to Chick-fil-A. He wanted a batting tee. So I went on Amazon for $15, got a plastic batting tee. Now he's moved to real baseball. But, we would go out there and I would chase the ball after he would hit this. And then I realized, I need more balls. And then I'll get him to go out and chase him himself. But, you learn. But become that party time grandpa, grandma. And at the same time, realize that your spiritual legacy is invested highly in them too. So you can get away with things that you can't, sometimes even with your own kids, because you're not, like with Charlotte, I probably wouldn't with my own kids have given them popcorn at 8:30 in the morning before they go to school. I'm just not going to do that. With Charlotte, I'm not going to go overboard. I would want to honor my daughter and her husband. But yeah, there's going to be a few little different things there.
I love it. Okay. What I heard was party time. So let's go. It sounds fantastic. Jim, this has been great. Great for me, great for the Family Vision community. How can people get in touch with you, follow your ministry, get some more encouragement and equipping, and where can they get this book, Doing Life with Your Adult Child?
Yeah. Well, if they go to homeword.com, HOMEWORD, like home and then the word of God, .com, they can find all of our good stuff. We've added courses, we do seminars. We're the largest provider of parenting seminars in the US. So people can bring us, not just me, but bring us out. And 27 speakers are out there trained doing it. And, we're continuing to do lots of fun training for parents and marriages. And it's a blessing. Homeward is a blessing. It's a great place. So they can find all that, find any of our resources as well.
Jim, thank you. This means a lot. Thanks for your impact in my life. I really appreciate it.
Well, Rob, thank you for what you're doing. Visionary Family I remember when you first were starting and I just went, wow, this is what we need in our country. So thank you.
Well, I hope you enjoyed this time with Jim. I was encouraged to keep learning, keep changing, and asking the Lord to give me a humble, teachable spirit so that I am a help and a blessing to my adult kids and not a hindrance to them. I hope you get a copy of Doing Life with Your Adult Children. And also, you may be in a situation where you have an older teenager or an adult child who is struggling spiritually. They are far from God. Maybe they've completely rejected the Christian faith and the God of the Bible. We have a special resource that can help you. It's called Never Too Late, Encouraging Faith in Your Adult Child. It is a book. It is a video Bible study. And the title communicates the message that the scriptures in this book are going to strengthen you, give you endurance, give you vision for this marathon of parenting, that it's never too late for God to use you to make a spiritual impact in the life of your son or daughter. Get this book, Never Too Late, on our website, visionaryfam.com, or wherever you buy your books. And we want to see you face to face. Podcast is great. YouTube is great, but it's not the same as being together. So Saturday, March 18th, friends in the Pacific Northwest, I want you to join me at the Northwest Ministry Conference in the Seattle area. On that same day, Amy and Lissy are going to be offering a very special seminar experience for mothers and daughters here in West Chicago, Illinois. Saturday morning, March 18th at Wheaton Academy, Mother-Daughter Connect. Amy, Lissy, you and your daughter together, learning how to have a stronger relationship and a stronger faith. Then April 10 through 12, Amy and I will be speaking at the D6 conference in Orlando, Florida, the premier family ministry training event. If you have a heart for families and the gospel and the church, this is the conference you want to be a part of. And then April 28th and 29th, I'll be back in Seattle speaking at the Christian Heritage Family Discipleship Conference. Would love to see you at one of those events and many of our other events coming near you in 2023. Learn more at visionaryfam.com/events. And as always, we want to hear from you, particularly if you have a prayer need for your family. We'd love to pray for you. It would be a privilege. Email us, podcast@visionaryfam.com. And I'm looking forward to our next time with you on Family Vision. It means so much to us to have you be a part of the Family Vision community. If this episode was meaningful for you, would you share it with a friend, with a family member? You can actually partner with us to bring hope and help to families around the world.
We are praying that Family Vision is a blessing to you and your family. So thank you for joining us here.
We look forward to our next time together.